Welcome to Undisputed, live from Los Angeles. I'm Holly Saunders in for Joy Taylor today. We joined a little later by NFL Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson and Terrell Owens. So they'll come in and join us. But first, we have some big news in NBA free agency. So let's get right to it. Gordon Hayward chose the 4th of July to declare his independence from Utah when he announced he was decided to play for the Celtics, led by former college coach Brad Stevens. Hayward has reportedly agreed to a 4-year max deal with Boston, choosing them over the Heat and his former team, the Jazz. Now, Hayward wrote about his decision on the Players Tribune, and he said there was the winning culture of Boston as a city, and of course, there was Coach Stevens, not just for the relationship that we've built off the court, but also for the one we started building on the court all those years ago in Indiana. And that unfinished business we had together back in 2010 when I left Butler for the NBA. As far as I'm concerned, all these years later, we still have it, and that's to win a championship. Big words there, Shannon. So are you surprised that Hayward chose Boston?
I am a little surprised because I thought he would go back to if he didn't go back to a familiar surroundings in Utah, he would go to Miami because I thought the Heat were a better fit. When you look at Dragic, who's more of a facilitator, getting the ball to guys than a score-first point guard like he's going to join in Boston. I also thought because of what he had with Rudy Gobert in Utah, he has that in Hassan Whiteside. And so I thought that would kind of sway him. And plus Pat Riley, Pat Riley, you hear all these stories about how great of a salesman he is. But lately, last 2 years, he's 0 for 2 right now because he struck out with Kevin Durant and he's missed on Gordon Hayward. I think two things really led him to go to Boston, Skip. He mentioned it in he mentioned both of them, the culture of Boston and the familiarity with his former college coach and Brad Stevens. You look at the history, you go from Russell to Kuzma to Havlicek to Cowens to Bird to Paul Pierce. That green in Boston, we know what the Garden is, although it's not the old Boston Garden, but they still call it the Garden. And then Brad Stevens, he knows this guy. Brad Stevens knows him. They work very well together. But when I look at it, I'm like, hold on. Still, you went to a team that you're not the best player. The best player is Isaiah Thomas. And I know you have dreams and aspirations of winning a title, but how do you win a title when the best player on the team is 5'9" tall? He's a defensive liability. He's a ball-dominant point guard. And you come to a situation where, because when you were in Utah, George Hill was a facilitator. He got you the ball. You knew you were going to get the most amount of shots. And people are like, well, it should be seamless. No, Kevin Durant's transition was seamless because they run a pass-the-ball offense, not a ball-dominant offense where one guy holds the ball for the majority of the shot clock. So that's going to be very, very interesting, Skip. But I want them to stop. Now, the first time I hear big three come out of somebody's mouth out of Boston, Larry Bird, Kevin McHale ought to go slap the taste out their mouth. Because just because you have 3 good players, that doesn't make it a big 3.
Who's the third?
First of all, who is the big?
Who's the first?
Yeah, exactly. They keep, they got a big 3 in Boston now. Look, I know what they're trying to do, Skip. They're going to say, well, now we have somebody that can challenge LeBron. Really? Okay, so instead of losing 4-1, you lose 4-2. You might win 2 or 3 more games. But really, do you actually think Gordon Hayward is the piece that's going to put you over the Cavs? And in process of signing him, guess what you're going to have to do, Skip? You're probably going to have to say goodbye to Jay Crowder. You're probably going to have to say goodbye to Marcus Smart. Olynyk, Jerebko. So all the depth that you once had that you can throw at people, that's going to be gone. But this is what's going to be very, very interesting moving forward. Avery Bradley and Isaiah Thomas are free agents next year. And guess what they're going to want, Skip? Isaiah Thomas is going to want a max contract. Avery Bradley is going to want a max contract. Now, we're going to talk about this later, Otto Porter. They say Otto Porter just got $104, $5, $6, $7 million. Isaiah Thomas said, I need me like 180, 200.
Yep.
So it's going to be very interesting, Skip, but I am a little surprised.
So for once, I agree with every point you just made, but what should be your bottom line conclusion to everything you just said? It should be that Gordon Hayward just made a big mistake.
Okay.
It should be that Gordon Hayward will ultimately long-term regret the decision he just made.
Okay.
Because I'm with you. I was surprised. I was shocked that he chose Boston. Now, I was also impressed for one reason. He showed some guts and some backbone and some fearless desire to take on the king and go win a ring.
What
right?
about the waffling, though, Skip? I mean, one they said he was going, and then all of a sudden, hold your horses. He's undecided.
I think he just wanted to write for the Players Tribune, and so he wanted to wait on the release of the decision.
And plus, it got out before he had an opportunity to tell the Jazz.
But it sounded like he had already made the choice.
Yes.
Okay, so to me, he made the quote-unquote right decision for the wrong reason.
Okay.
Again, is it an easier path to the finals through the East? Obviously it is, now that Jimmy Butler's gone and Paul George is gone and Paul Millsap is gone, all to the West.
Yep.
And you look, I'm sure as they did, as Brad Stevens was probably his college coach at Butler was telling him, look at what happened to LeBron down the stretch. They went, as I kept telling you, 23-23 did the Cleveland Cavaliers over their last 46 games, which allowed Boston to vault all the way up to 51-31 and win the #1 seed in the East without Gordon Hayward. So I'm sure Ainge, Brad Stevens are selling him on, you're the missing link, man. You're the final piece to the championship puzzle. Really? So you just walked away from, guess what, in Utah? $45 million you left on the table in Utah. Was Utah a comfort zone for Gordon Hayward? Yeah.
Yes.
Because it's the 5th smallest media market in the NBA, and it feels even smaller than that to me.
It really does.
It feels like the bottom, right?
Right.
New Orleans is the smallest media market. But the point is, it's out of sight, out of mind. You are a big fish in a very small pond. You finally had a breakout season, but it took you 7 NBA seasons to have that one 22-5 season.
Correct.
Remember, he only had 5 rebounds a game, which is not like Kevin Love numbers.
Right.
And I told you yesterday, as great a season as he had in Utah for a team that jumped out and they went 51-31. I'm sorry, Boston was 53-29, but Utah was 51-31, which was for them a breakout year.
Yeah.
So again, they're stuck in the West. Are they ever going to win? They're not going to win the West, but they were the 5 seed and they were almost the 4 seed because they were tied with the Clippers and barely lost it on the tiebreaker. And yet, I told you yesterday that Gordon Hayward, to my eye, is not the player any of the Eastern All-Stars were from last year. I wouldn't take him over one of the East All-Stars last year, and that included, obviously, George and Butler and Millsap.
Yeah.
Not one.
No.
I wouldn't take him over Kevin Love right now. Would you?
No.
I think
No.
it's close, but I'm going Kevin Love.
I would definitely take Kevin Love over
Right?
Gordon Hayward. Yes.
Okay, so I wouldn't take him over any of the Eastern Conference All-Stars, and yet he will now be viewed by way too many of the Celtic fans, and I can't condemn them for this because they've been starved for a long time. But you know what they're going to see? Larry Bird's going to walk through that door, right?
Yes.
Oh, it's Larry. They're going to have delusions of grandeur again because here's a white player who had a very good year, not a Larry Bird year.
Yeah.
But Gordon Hayward, to me, and we talked about this yesterday, is as far from Larry Bird as we are right now sitting in Los Angeles from French Lick, Indiana, where Larry Bird grew up. That's how far he is away from being Larry Bird.
And they're oh man, Gordon Hayward had 20. He was 21.7 and 5. He had 21.5. Larry Bird for a career averaged 24, 10, and 6.
Okay, so the path is easier.
Yes.
You reunite with your college coach, and he talked about in the Players Tribune, unfinished business, because as you remember,
Yes.
as a sophomore at Butler, they were in the national championship game against Duke, and Gordon Hayward wound up with a running half-court shot that it banked, but it came close.
Yes.
It hit the backboard first,
Yeah,
and then it hit the front of the rim.
Right.
It really didn't have that much of a shot of going in, but if it had, it'd be the greatest shot in NCAA championship game history by
Yes.
far. But they came within that shot of beating Duke in the championship
Right.
game. So now you got unfinished business. And it all sounds great, and it looks great. And he had the guts and the backbone to say, I want to wear green, I want to step into the Celtic tradition, and I want to go into the East where I know I have a chance as I join the #1 seed from last year to challenge Cleveland.
And I got a chance every year to be an all-star. And when it's all said and done, because as you mentioned now, those 12 all-stars that went to the all-star, the 12 players that went to the all-star game last year, 3 of those have been removed.
Yeah.
So automatically, by just coming in, he's a top 10 player in the East. He was not a top 10 player in the West.
Nope.
So now he
And
when
we
it's all,
did this yesterday, but I was having a hard time even making him a top 30 player in the league. In the
Yeah.
league,
Yes.
his PER, a stat that I like, player efficiency rating, he was 27th.
Yes.
But Are you really? Then we started to throw players up there, and you start throwing all the point guards in, and you start thinking, maybe top 40.
Yeah.
Top 40?
Because you got.
So he's the savior of the Boston Celtics?
Because even if you just take the 3 in Boston and the 2 in Toronto, he's at 5. I believe Hassan Whiteside is better than he is.
Definitely.
So now we're at 6, so that he's automatically at 7. But Skip, when you get down to it, because honestly, players care about how they're viewed. They want to go to All-Star games. Gordon Hayward was never making another All-Star game with Paul George, Jimmy Butler in that conference in Millsap, because they don't go by position; they go by front court.
Yep.
You got Anthony Towns, you got Davis, Boogie Cousins, all those guys. We didn't even mention Kawhi and KD. So he's not going. All NBA, that matters, Skip, because at the end of the day, when you play, you're like, okay, have I done enough? It's going to come out. I mean, it's not going to come out, but when they start saying, okay, is this guy a Hall of Famer? They're not going to say, well, he only went to 1 All-Star game in the West, but he went to 6 in the East. They're going to say he's a 7-time All-Star. That's what they're going to say. And he has a better chance of being thought of more highly being in the East than he would the West, considering 2 players joined that conference that basically play his same position that are better than he is. So all that being said, Skip, but when you look at the Celtics, Isaiah Thomas is still your best player. He's still a ball-dominant player. How do you get him to because think about this. He was second-team All-NBA. He averaged 29 points a game. How do you say, Isaiah, in order for us to get better, we need you to take a step back? He's like, hold on. I just took a step forward. I'm finally becoming the player that I want to be, and now you bring him in and you want me to cede some of this scoring, because that's what makes him fantastic, Skip. He started doing it's IT time, the 4th quarter. Gordon Hayward say, bruh, they brought me here too.
How tall is Isaiah? 5'9"?
They list him at 5'9".
Their ceiling is as high as he is, which is 5'8". That's their ceiling.
No mercy. If you're a NASCAR fan, there's a new podcast for you to subscribe to, Heritage Road, the podcast that drives you down memory lane, takes you under the hood, and gets you behind the wheel of America's favorite racing competition. They talk to the hardworking drivers, crewmen, and fans that make NASCAR possible then and now. From NASCAR royalty Bobby Allison to the broadcasters that brought you racing in homes around the country, they've got all the stories you've probably never heard before. Hosted by the voice of Texas Motor Speedway, Rich Phillips. Brought to you by Busch, the beer that has supported racing since 1979. Subscribe to Heritage Road today for free wherever you listen to podcasts.
No mercy. The Warriors have kept the core of their championship team intact. Some big moves in free agency have impacted the Western Conference. Paul George was traded to the Thunder, Chris Paul was traded from the Clippers to the Rockets, and Jimmy Butler is now in Minnesota. So Shannon, after all these big moves being made, how does the West shape up now?
Skip, I still believe the Warriors and the Spurs are the 2 best teams. This is where it starts to get interesting for me. And I'm probably going to surprise you with the higher rank 3 through 5. I got the Thunder in the 3rd slot. I got the Rockets in the 4. I got the Timberwolves in the 5th. Nuggets, Blazers, and it was a toss-up between the Pelicans and the Grizz, and I went to Pelicans. Skip, I like the moves that OKC they're making, because for me, Skip, and you might disagree with me. I think the gap between Oladipo and George is bigger than the gap between Kevin Durant and Paul George.
Okay. All right. I'm with you.
Patrick Patterson.
That was a big deal to me.
I like that.
He works for them.
I like that.
Well,
I'm counting on Steven Adams to have a bounce-back year.
He better.
He realized he did not play. He was not the guy trying to get that big contract as the guy that once he got it, he shut. Now, Enes Kanter, Skip, we know he can score the basketball. But his problem is he got to be able to guard somebody at some point. And Houston, I'm still up because you got 2 guys that are very proficient at the pick and roll, but they happen to be on the same team. And they both need the ball in order to get into the pick and roll, and that's Chris Paul and James Harden. Now, they got rid of Patrick Beverley, who's one of the better on-ball defenders. Chris Paul is good, but I think Patrick Beverley is a little better on-ball defender than Chris Paul.
I agree.
Lou Williams, they're trying to unload Ryan Anderson's contract. So what are they going to be? Now, D'Antoni liked the 3 ball. He's like, I want to get up 50 a game. But when you look at them, when he was in Phoenix and they had their system going, it was Steve Nash playing downhill, dumping the ball off to Amari Stoudemire. That's how he became a two-time league MVP in Steve Nash. So I got them in the 4th slot. The Minnesota, I believe Jimmy Butler, with his veteran leadership, being able to implement and tell them exactly what Tibbs is trying to get accomplished, head coach Tom Thibodeau. Now, they got a nice little squad. Jimmy Butler, Karl Anthony Towns, Andrew Wiggins, they got Teague. I like what they are. Now, the thing for me is the Nuggets, because Jokic is the real deal.
He is.
Paul Millsap and all those young players, I like where they are. Skip, but this is the unknown. And we played well when they traded, when they got Nurkic, and they put him in Portland, playing with those 2 guys in the backcourt, CJ and Dame. I like it. I like it. Now, I know the Pelicans, once they got Boogie Cousins, they already had a losing record. They lost at an even greater clip. But I believe those 25, 30 games that they played together last year, with an offseason and a training camp to understand what each other can do and how they can play off each other, I believe they're going to get the 8th spot. The Jazz, they hurt, Skip. That hurt. Losing Gordon Hayward, that's going to hurt.
They'll take a step back.
Yes.
Agreed.
The Clippers.
Yeah.
They keep, Blake's going to be a point. Blake can't stay healthy.
So, but they added Gallinari and they still have DeAndre, but Blake can't stay healthy. And no Chris Paul. And no Redick.
Well, who going to run the point?
They'll take a step down.
And the Grizzlies, now they lose Zebo, but they got, Mike Conley played well. Marc Gasol played.
Chandler Parsons might or might not.
Might or might not play. They did pretty good in the draft. So that's where I am right now. I think the Thunder, the Rockets, and Minnesota will be 3, 4, and 5.
Okay. So where I'm with you is that the West got absurdly deeper, but it didn't change at the top.
No.
It will just make it harder for those 2 top teams, Golden State and San Antonio, to win as many games as they won last year.
Right.
I don't think either will. Okay. There's talk about Golden State is so good they can go for 80 wins. Baloney, you can't. It's too deep and it's too good, and it's so much better than the East. It's a big joke now, the disparity between the 2 conferences. But the key piece, the linchpin of the offseason to me was Andre Iguodala. And nobody wants to, because he seems like a small story because he's a 6th, 7th man. But the Spurs, I thought, had a great shot at him. And then Kevin Durant slammed that door shut by taking whatever it was, $10 million less.
Yeah.
So he was the MVP of the finals and the MVP of the offseason with that move. You still don't like the fact that he took less money, but all he did was assure them of a really good shot at winning back-to-back championships.
You know why you thought your team was going to get him? Because you thought Kevin Durant was going to take a haircut. Come to find out, Kevin Durant got a bald head. He shaved all his hair off for the Golden State Warriors in order for them to keep Livingston, in order for them to keep Iguodala.
Both of them.
Because you were going to add your strength by making a subtraction away from Golden State. That's where because he's on your roster, so now you can't count on those 7 to 12 points a night. Because he's still an elite defender. He can knock down threes, and he's improved so dramatically in his free throw. Because he used to be a terrible free throw shooter, Skip. And now he goes to the line with money on the line, and he makes those.
With the money on the line, he always makes
Yes.
He makes clutch shots. He makes clutch defensive plays. He changes games.
Yes.
He would have been another perfect Spur fit. And he would have hurt Golden State and really helped the Spurs.
Correct.
And tilted the court in favor of the Spurs. But
Yes.
I'm going to say this again, and people get sick and tired of me saying this, but I loved my Spurs at the end of the year.
Okay.
They clicked. They took off. They came together. I didn't know how much they were going to miss Tim Duncan, but with LaMarcus and Gasol defending the rim, they were just as good defensively as they were the year before Tim Duncan. So all they did was go into Golden State, obviously, on day number 1 of the regular season and win by 29, and all they did in game 1 of the Western Conference Final was lead by 23 points midway through the 3rd quarter. Game 1 in Oakland. And you know what happened? Zaza Pacheep shot happened. That was the end of that series. So, again, if Kawhi Leonard stays healthy for that. I just think the Spurs would have won. I picked them. It would have been very interesting because they definitely would have won game 1, which would have made them a real interesting pick for game 2 because you'd have Golden State on its heels, and all of a sudden it's saying, does Kevin fit or not? Because we were talking about how Golden State looked even better without Kevin down the stretch
Yep.
when he was hurt. So to me, it was real close between San Antonio and Golden State last year. And to me, so far, Golden State hasn't gotten any better. They just stayed the same. Now, you can argue just
That
a year
same is pretty
together.
good.
It was pretty great. It's pretty great. But San Antonio, I still don't know what it's not done yet. It's not finished. They could still go out and add a Rudy Gay or some other. There's still some pieces. And after the Gordon Hayward domino fell, some other dominoes will fall fast.
And they're mentioning that OKC is interested in Rudy Gay.
Okay,
Well,
a lot of people are. Okay.
So let me ask you. So okay, if these top two teams, the Warriors and Spurs, are top two, what do you got? The Thunder, the Rockets, Timberwolves.
Okay. But you thought I would be shocked as your pick of Oklahoma City. They're the third seed to me. I love Paul George, not as a player by himself,
Right.
because I called him George Paul.
Right.
But with this guy, with Russell, he is the perfect low ego co-star to Russell Westbrook. I couldn't design it better. I couldn't do it in a lab. I couldn't draw up a better player in a test tube than Paul George for Russell Westbrook, because he doesn't care about taking late, great shot, making big shots late. And he won't mind that Russell has the ball in his hands most of the time and will lead and maybe set a record in usage rate. But I'm going to predict, 1 year ago, yesterday, I predicted that Russell would average a triple-double after Kevin made his decision to leave, and that he would win the MVP.
Right.
So he did. Now I'm going to predict that Russell will care far less about triple-doubling and MVPing next year, and the focus will be more on winning.
Yes.
Because what stung him the most, why did he put the picture up? What was he watching? I can't even remember what he was watching. He put up some movie that he was watching. Was it Sister Act or something like that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Good one.
Yeah. So he wanted to say, I don't even care about the NBA Finals.
Right.
Well, he does. And it hurt him, even though he did win the MVP. Now it's about competing, about winning. So next year with Patrick Patterson and Paul George, and again, as you said, you need Steven Adams to be Steven Adams of 2 years ago.
Correct.
And I guess Enes Kanter is still there. I guess they're going to, I don't know if they're going to make another move, but I still like this team. I liked it last year a lot more than you did, and now I like it a whole lot more. So they're the 3 seed. Houston will be a little worse than they were a year ago. And I'm going to say it again, James Harden will quickly turn into the unhappiest player in the NBA, because Chris Paul will have his job. His job was the center of Mike D'Antoni's universe, right?
Yeah.
And he loved it, because he averaged, what, double-digit assists?
He led the league in assists.
Wow, that's
like
pretty
11.3,
great.
11.4.
And all of a sudden, you got demoted just because you had one bad game, because that was a meltdown against my Spurs in Game 6 at home. I'll give you that, when he went 2 for 11 from the floor and fouled out. But with this team, with all those players Patrick Beverley, when I'm rooting against Houston, he's the one who scares me the most. He makes big shots. He makes it so hard on your point guard. So he's gone. And who scared me the most coming off the bench? Lou Williams. You want to talk about sweet Lou, man. He would come in and just light people up. Well, they've lost some of their three-point shooting, especially if they have to unload Ryan Anderson. So they're taking steps back, along with Utah, along with the Clippers. And here comes Portland. And I told you how much I love Nurkic.
Yep.
And he got hurt, broke his leg, obviously late in the year, after they went on a 14-5 tear with him late in the year. So I got them. I think they're going to be a little better than Houston. I could see them being the 4 seed. Denver's on the rise. I could see them being all the way up to the 5 seed.
And
those 2 down low.
I would have put Minnesota in the 3rd spot, but I got to see them win first.
Man, you're way hotter on.
Skip, man, that Carl Anthony. I love Carl Anthony Towns.
So do I. I loved him in college.
Andrew Wiggins, Skip. You watch Andrew Wiggins.
That team won 31 games last year, 31-51, and you're telling me Jimmy Butler and Teague are going to change lives?
Yes. Wow. Because Rubio can't score, Skip. He can't. And I believe Andrew Wiggins will show consistency. Skip, we watched the dude play. He went at LeBron. He went and got 40 against the Cavs. Now, they lost the game, and we see games where he gets 40, he goes get 38, and then all of a sudden the next night he has 18 to 20. You're like, well, he doesn't seem interested. It seems like when he goes up against another star player and he knows eyes are going to be watching, he shows up and he shows out. He needs to be that consistently. And I believe Jimmy Butler is that right spark. There is a reason why Tibbs wanted Jimmy Butler. He's his type of guy. He's a junkyard dog. He will fight you tooth and nail. He can make big shots. He can definitely defend. And his type of play will be infectious. You watching training camp, you will see a different Andrew Wiggins. You will see a different Karl Anthony Towns. I love this team. I would have picked them a lot higher, but I need to see them win, and I believe they will win.
But you're talking about the 3 seed,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I'm talking about them competing, which will be the best battle in the NBA, for the 7 and 8 seed. Because all these teams down at the bottom, Memphis you could throw in there, New Orleans. New Orleans is still very dangerous.
With those two, they got two of the top
Drew
5
Holiday
big men.
is still there, so he's signed.
Would you agree that they have 2 of the top 5 big men on their roster?
Yep.
Because Anthony Davis, I mean, whether you like him or Karl Anthony Towns, I think they're probably the 2 of the best. And then Boogie. Think about it. Boogie averaged 28 and 12 just year before in Sacramento.
And I'm going to say this one more time.
Drew Holiday needs to earn that money, too.
He will. Unlike you, I believe in Lonzo Ball. A lot of people do not believe in his father, and they get distracted by his father. But this kid will change Laker life.
They're not going to make the playoffs.
I think they got a shot.
Skip, you're going to have to,
I look at it. I know it's just packed.
You're going to probably have to win 44 games just to get the 8 seed.
No, I don't know about that.
No mercy.
All right, next up, Otto Porter has reportedly agreed on a max offer sheet from Brooklyn for 4 years, $106 million. The Washington Post reported that the Wizards intend to match the Nets' offer, which would make Porter the highest-paid player on the team, despite averaging a career-high 13 points last season. Over the weekend, Buffalo wide receiver Sammy Watkins called out the salary discrepancy between the NBA and NFL. This is interesting. Watkins tweeted, "We got to get paid more. I'm pretty sure 2014 class will change the market."
Good luck.
Shannon, you agree with Watkins?
Well, first of all, Sammy Watkins, you need to stay healthy. If you stayed healthy, you probably would have already gotten paid.
That is true.
Not NBA money.
But I think you believe in his sentiment.
Yes. Just looking at it, it seems to me that the middle tier guys in the NBA are valued more than the upper echelon guys of the NFL. Skip, this guy's going to be, this is $24, $26 million a year. No, think about that. The best, if you take the best 10 players in the NFL and you look at their salaries, they won't even be close to this. We're not talking, if this guy is going to make $7 million less than LeBron James' salary should be double. He should be making $52 million a year.
I'll buy that. Maybe tripled. Yeah.
Because what happens, Skip, is that in the NBA, you got to spend X amount of dollars. And so when you got you got guys that's making the max, the super max, like a Steph Curry and LeBron, them is getting max what he can sign at the time. So, and you got the floor here. You got to fill in that space between the ceiling and the floor with guys that, if they were in the NFL, they'd just be their role player. Otto Porter is a role player that's getting paid, that's about to get paid like a superstar. And I'm not saying, the problem that I have with the NFL, Skip, is that when you see this, he signed a 6-year contract for $140 million. How much is he going to make in the first 2 years? Because that's really all that contract's about. See, the NBA, they sign a 4-year, 5-year deal. They're getting all that money. Even if you try and trade them and you I got bounced like they had, like the OKC Thunder had with Victor Oladipo.
Yep.
As soon as he put the O on that contract, they're like, man, what have we done?
Yep.
We just gave this dude $21 million, $22 million a year for the next 4 years. We got to unload this contract.
And they got out from under. Yep.
It would be interesting to see, Skip. This is what I would like to see. If an NFL player, top player, became a free agent and the team couldn't tag him. Because, see, I'm sure some of these teams would have made a play for Von Miller, but I'm not going to give up 2 first-rounders to get him. See, in the NBA, you can make a play on somebody else free agent, and it doesn't cost you any compensation as far as giving up anything to get him. So this is where the NFL is at a disadvantage, because you might be able to get $25, $30 million, but a team's like, I got to pay you $25, $30 million, and I got to give up draft picks for the next first-rounders for the next 2 years. I think this is where the divide is as far as the NFL and NBA, because I believe the players, the salaries could go. Now, you're not going to get no middle, no role player making no $18, $20 million like you get in basketball. But I believe the top players, if you became a free agent and a team couldn't tag you and they would have to give up a first and a third for a transitional player or 2 firsts for an exclusive franchise player, I believe a guy like an Aaron Rodgers, a guy like a Tom Brady, Von Miller, you would see those salaries. What would a Jacksonville, what would a Houston, what would they give for a guy like a Aaron Rodgers to come up on the free agent market, a Drew Brees, what would they be willing to pay him to get him from Green Bay or New Orleans?
With you. So, Otto Porter Jr. is about to become the most laughable free agent signing in sports history. Because he had a breakout year last year for the Washington
Tell about
Wizards.
that breakout year. Tell about it.
And it was 13 points and 6 rebounds.
Oh, man, I can give you 8. I can give you 8 and 2
Changed
right now.
life in Washington, right? And in Game 6 against the Boston Celtics of their epic series, he went scoreless, did Otto Porter Jr.
So he might have got $30 million if he just scored 2 points.
Maybe 2. He just shattered records. Not really, but he shot 43% from 3 last year. But check this out this morning. He took only 341 threes, which ranked 54th in the league. So my point is, he's a low volume on average three-point shooter. He did make 43%.
Skip,
We're not talking about Steph Curry or Kevin Durant here,
but see
right?
what he's doing, Skip, he's going 1 for 2. Or he's going 2 for 5.
Right.
And when it's all said, they're like, man, you see him, he shot the lights out the ball.
So Otto Porter Jr. before last year, as the 3rd overall pick once upon a time, was considered a bust.
Yes.
His career averages, even given last year, are 9 points and 4 rebounds. And yet, he has now been offered a contract by the Nets that would pay him an average of $26.5 million. And now it's up to Washington to match that deal. So to keep him, Washington's going to have to pay him $26.5 million over the next 4 years, which is absurd and outrageous and so awfully wrong. And if I'm the Wizards, I just say no. I just say we can do. You're right. On a decent team, on a good, like a contending team, Otto Porter Jr. at 6'8" and 198 pounds, he's your basic 7th man.
Yeah.
You know, he's not bad, but he's not a starter.
No.
And he's certainly not an all-star.
And even if he is a starter, he's the 5th guy.
Okay.
He's not the guy that you're running offense for. But, Skip, if you just stay in that same city, are you telling me Otto Porter is a better player in the NBA than Kirk Cousins is in the NFL? Because Washington says we just can't make this long-term commitment, although they're going to pay him $24.5 million. Kirk Cousins is a way better quarterback than Otto Porter is a 3.
I'm not even a Kirk Cousins fan, and I completely agree with you. He's a way better quarterback than Otto is, whatever he is. 3-point shooter, whatever you want to say. So $26.5 million, again, it's slightly more than Kirk Cousins would make.
Yes.
But it's exactly what Kevin Durant has agreed to make for Golden State next year after Kevin Durant was the driving force of a championship season in Golden State. Wow.
No mercy.
Our next guest spent 5 seasons as the offensive coordinator of the Patriots, winning 3 Super Bowls, then went on to coach Notre Dame and Kansas. I think you know who we're talking about, Charlie Weiss. Welcome to Undisputed, sir.
Thank you very much.
You were just telling us a great story that connects over here to our buddy Shannon Sharpe. What was that?
Yeah, well, back in '85, I took a job as a GA at South Carolina, and the guy who lived next to me was Shannon Sharpe.
No way.
So I've known Shannon since he was a little kid. You know?
Actually, I texted him because I remember him telling me about it. That Charlie, when Charlie was in with New England, and he's like, he lived next to me. He was a grad assistant. I'm like, really? And so I texted him this morning. He's like, yeah, he was a grad assistant.
Oh, yeah.
Ask him about
You
it.
actually knew this guy in 1985?
Yeah, I came to visit.
What was that like?
Oh,
Yeah.
let me tell you something. We loved him there. You know, I think that one of the biggest mistakes we made was not bringing him into South Carolina, to tell you the truth.
Grades, Skip.
Oh.
I couldn't get in prison with those grades.
You
Well,
know,
you made him pay, right?
Savannah State, right?
Yeah,
See, there. My memory serves me correctly.
Yeah. So speaking of your coaching career, you went on to coach Tom Brady for his first 4 years in this league. You won 3 Super Bowls with Tom Brady, or he won 3 with you, however you want to look at that. And that was in those first 4 years. So now the question arises, how much longer will and can Tom Brady play? Because Mr. Kraft has said that Tom's telling him he wants to play for 6 or 7 more years. He's about to turn 40 on August the 3rd. So gut feeling from a man who knows him, how much longer do you see Tom playing?
There's no end in sight, and that's the truth. Now, he wasn't always like that. When he was younger, you know, he wasn't this health kick guy. Now, he was a workout warrior, Okay, but he wasn't like eating only this and drinking only this and doing only this stuff and having masseuses and everything else. But he takes care of his body like no one I've ever seen before, and he's totally evolved his whole mentality about taking care of his body. And I mean, as long as you're playing at the production that he's playing at the level he's playing, everyone's rooting for him to fall off the wall. And there's no evidence of him falling off the wall. Tell me where it is.
I think the thing that Skip wants to know is not how long can he play, how long will he play in New England?
Well, I mean, how would New England let him go?
You know Coach Belichick better.
I know that Coach Belichick, everyone's dispensable. I got it. Okay, but this guy's a legend. I mean, this is Larry Bird. I mean, this is Bobby Orr. I mean, this is Tom Brady. I mean, I think, let's face it, Jimmy's not ever going to root for Tommy to get hurt.
No.
But the only way Jimmy's playing is if Tommy gets hurt.
Okay, but they're going to have to make a decision pretty soon here.
Well, it's an easy decision for the Patriots now. You say make a decision. There's no decision for the Patriots. You go try to sign them because you can't have enough quarterbacks. The decision really isn't the Patriots' decision. The decision really is Garoppolo's decision. Because
but they can't pay him what I think Jimmy thinks he is going to be worth, certainly on the open market.
Well,
right?
see, Tommy takes that discount because he's married to that Giselle lady.
Well, it helps if your wife is making $40, $50 million a year.
Well, he's going to have to take a deep discount on this one.
I remember when he goes, "Yeah, I'm making 20. She's making 50." I said, "Well, okay."
Exactly. So the other question about Tom going forward is, it's the one everybody faces, you face. When does the fire go out? In Shannon's case, he just got sick and tired of the meetings, not the Sunday, but the meetings during the week. Do you see Tom's fire burning or raging the way it does for another 5, 6, 7 years?
Actually, I've seen it even be reignited even further. I mean, now that he's embedded into one area, he's got his kids around him, and he gets to be dad and all that other stuff. He's not, living the high life, flying all over the world like he was when you're single. Right. You remember now? I knew him when he was, when no one knew him. It was his first year in the league. He threw 3 passes. I mean, I think he was 1 for 3, and it was in the Detroit game for about 6 yards. So the next year he goes, Drew gets hurt, and wins a Super Bowl, and all of a sudden he must have got good looking overnight. Because now all of a sudden everyone wanted to date him. So.
Let me ask you this, Charlie. Did you know he would be this when you had him early on?
We had a good idea. I had a good idea, but because I don't want to make it there's no I with the Patriots.
Right.
We had a good idea because what he would do in his rookie year, even though he wasn't getting any reps, remember, we kept 4 quarterbacks on the roster.
Right.
No one keeps 4 quarterbacks on the 53. We kept 4 because he was the 4th. He wasn't even 13.
If you released him and tried to slide him back to the
we lost.
Okay.
So every day at the end of practice, he would take all the guys who kind of didn't do anything, okay, and go through the whole practice script. And you'd sit there and watch that and say, who does that? Right. Practice is over. Shannon, about half the guys are in the shower already. I mean,
by the time the coach says, "All right,"
that's right. There's guys jogging off the field already.
Some guys don't even shower before they leave. They just going.
And it wasn't just running through the plays.
Right.
It was running through the plays meticulous. And you look at this and say, God, he's got that something. Right. And a quarterback, let's face it, people want to talk about qualities in quarterbacks all the time. He's got this, he's got that, he's got it.
Right.
And it means more important than all those other things.
What is it? Try to describe it.
It's a subjective term, okay? But it's that special thing when that people are going to, like the Pied Piper, people want to play for and with him.
And they'll follow.
Okay, and that's right. And they'll follow him. He's the guy who walks into huddle with the minute to go and said, "Okay, boys, we're down by 6. Do we want to use the whole minute to score? Or we're scoring."
Right.
Okay, and everyone believes it.
What's his relationship with, because Coach Belichick, you spend a lot of hours in coaches' meetings, and like you said, you watch Tom grow up. What's the relationship? What's the dynamic between Tom Brady and Coach Belichick?
Actually, it was enhanced by a tragedy. It was enhanced back in early in. I'm trying to make sure I get the right year. 2001. A close friend of mine, Dick Rabine, who was the quarterback coach at the time with us, died.
Okay.
Died August 5th. Okay, and we decided not to hire a quarterback coach. And I was the offensive coordinator, so I was coaching the quarterbacks, okay, in addition to being a coordinator. And the way we do things there, a lot of times the coordinator's in different spots, so he's not always with the quarterbacks. So what Bill would do is Bill actually picked up the slack, not another coach. And Bill started going over more and more meetings with Tommy about defensive personnel. He'd go break down the defensive personnel and be meticulous. This is what this corner does. This is what that corner does. This is the coverage they're playing. It's looking like this, but it's actually like that. And it got to be the point by the time Tommy got to the games, like there'd be times I say, "Why did you go there?" And he goes, "Well, they're playing cover 5." I said, "That wasn't cover 5." He goes, "Yeah, it was." He goes, "It just didn't get a chance to develop." And then you go watch it. Then you go watch the tape the next day, and you'd see it was cover 5, because as you know, anyone who's on the field realizes you can't see the game on the field like you can up at the booth.
Right.
You know, up in the booth, the game is so easy to see. You see, like you
It
see,
really is.
You know, whereas when you're down on the field, if a play happens real quick, you might not see the difference between a quarter's coverage and half field coverage because it may never have had a chance to materialize.
Right.
You know.
Is that the reason why we see a lot of quarterbacks? You look at Peyton Manning, you look at Tom Brady, they have defensive-minded head coaches because of the very thing that you talked about. What would you do in this situation? How would you prepare for this formation? Is that why you think Tom Brady has advanced to the stage that he is?
I give Bill, you know, a lot of kudos for that right there. You know, obviously it's all about Tommy, okay, but you know, Bill has been a major part of being involved in that mental preparation. It isn't just Josh. You know, Josh is one of the best coordinators there is in football. But throw the combination of Josh and Bill together, you know, that they can high-low them, saying, "I got this covered, you got that covered." By the time, and then he's a student of the game anyway. Because if you mess up, he's going to tell you. You know, so you have to stay one step ahead of him.
Right.
No, as a coach.
Right.
As a coach, you can't make a mistake in the meetings.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because he's going to know you made a mistake.
Right.
Okay, so you got to stay one step ahead of him. It keeps you on your toes. Make sure that you're not making mistakes as far as the mental preparation as well.
So, Charlie, you can't see a point that Coach Belichick would say, "I want to see if I can win a Super Bowl without Tom Brady."
Can I see it? No, I can't see it. Could it happen? It's happened in New England before. I mean, Lawyer was, you know, our starting strong safety, and that ended up not working out. Drew was our starting quarterback. He ended up going.
Seymour,
you know, there's a lot of guys, you know, towards the end of the career when they're making a lot of money, it comes to that point where, you know, but Tommy's really doesn't ask for the top dollar. I mean, because if he did, he'd obviously get it.
Right.
You know, so he takes less than the top dollar, which is usually the biggest thing that creates animosity. So he doesn't always ask for that right there. He'd rather have Garoppolo on the team than not on the team. Yeah. But that being said, I think that the Patriots are going to want to keep Jimmy Garoppolo. I think what happens with Jacoby might have a lot to do with what happens with Jimmy. Because, you know, you got Jacoby sitting there third. As he evolves and get better, you might say, okay, we got somebody good enough that we could win with, you know, so we're not going to go give $25 million a year to this guy who's a backup.
Interesting.
You mentioned animosity. I would have tremendous animosity, anger, eating Tom Brady's diet. Kale with the side of kale every single day. No thanks, right, Charlie?
The Tommy I know, that wasn't his diet, just so you know, okay?
Well, you can look at that
That's
body
a public
that
one,
he
yeah,
took at the combine, Skip. He wasn't eating kale and avocado ice cream.
Right, not back then.
I tell you, 188 pounds of skin and bones. That's what it was that senior year.
Yep.
When you look at that combine tape, you say, oh my God, look at
Who
this
is
guy.
that,
Look at
right?
this guy.
Charlie, thanks for joining us. Safe travels back to Florida. Come back soon, please.
Oh, it was great. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
No mercy.
Terrell Owens and Eric Dickerson are still in studio with us. We love having them here. So let's talk wide receivers. Terrell ranks 3rd all-time in touchdown receptions and 2nd all-time in receiving yards, right behind former teammate Jerry Rice. So it goes without saying, you're a very big deal, Terrell. So thanks for being here.
Thanks.
Who do you think is the greatest wide receiver of all time?
I'm gonna go with my same analogy I did with the Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. Jerry Rice is always gonna be number 1. Obviously, there's a lot of debate and discussion about who's 2 or 3. So I'll help everyone out with that. Jerry's 1 and T.O. is 1A.
Talk to him, T.O.
We didn't see that coming.
And I say that because, like I said, there's no argument with what Jerry's done. But I think about my body of work and what I did. I did more with less. Jerry Rice played with 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks. There was not a drop-off in that quarterback position. He played with Joe Montana, and then he goes with Steve Young. You give me those 2 guys, there's no telling what my stats would be like. And this is coming from a guy that really didn't know how to play the receiver position.
Right.
I went to a small school, UT Chattanooga, was drafted, was raw, green. I learned how to become a receiver my years there in San Francisco.
Edie,
Okay.
what you got, Edie? What you got on there?
Wait a second. So you're saying you're 1A to the 1, right?
Right.
But I think you're making a case that you're actually 1. I mean, that's what I was hearing. No, I mean, I think in your heart of hearts, I think that's what you believe.
No, you hear a lot.
I don't.
You hear a lot. You interpret the things the way you interpret.
Okay, but you're
Like
saying that your
well, we
degree
can
of
be-
difficulty was harder than Jerry's because he played in the
He's
most
saying
receive-
it's like that.
Okay.
It's like you pick them.
Exactly.
It's like
1
you
and
pick
1A.
'em. You pick
But
'em. It's like you pick
me speaking today, like, yeah, Jerry's always going to be the greatest of all time to me. Like I said, but in my eyes, I could have done some of the same things with what he had at the quarterback
And
position.
you had it for a while in San Francisco, obviously.
No, I played with Steve Young for only like 3 years.
Okay, but I mean,
And
you
then
had
I
it for a
played
while. Yeah.
Then I played with Jeff Garcia
did.
and a
I
number of
got
other
it.
guys after that. Tim Rattay. So again, I played with a number of quarterbacks.
Okay,
But you
I
look
got
at
it.
my body of work with the caliber quarterbacks compared to those guys, it's not the same. And then on top of that, you look at early on in Jerry's career, he played, not to saying to diminish his skill set, but the defenses weren't as complex as they are now. It was basically cover 2, cover 1, cover 3, whatever the case may be. He was eating guys alive.
Well, once upon a time in December, what was it, 2000? Because they were like triple teaming him on Jerry Rice Day, you caught 20 balls in that offense.
And then
which
they
was
start
in the record.
triple and double
Yep,
teaming
I know,
me as
I got
well.
it, I got it.
I remember playing in Dallas. This is how I knew I was on the biggest stage and I was starting to become whomever. I was lined up, and Michael Irvin, your guy, was on the sideline. They put a linebacker and a cornerback on me to try to stop me. That let me know right there that I really had a
They
right.
ain't want you running to the star again. Why you do that to you?
That is but that is a fact. That's not a joke. That's a fact.
right to the
Who
start.
Who you got, Edie?
Okay. All right. Wow. That was kind of deep.
was deep.
That was deep. No, but not really. I agree with T.O. To a point. Is that Jerry Rice is number 1. T.O. to me is number 2. But I say this much, and I say just what he said. When you look at the players that Jerry played with, Jerry was not a speedy guy, wasn't fast. You know, got guys who ran better routes, but he played with some great quarterbacks, and you always got to put that in there. You might not want to, but it's just facts.
Yeah.
T.O. did not have those quarterbacks. He didn't have that luxury. But I go to say that to say this. I think the most talented wide receiver, with the most talent I've ever seen, Randy Moss. I mean, he was just raw,
Freak of
I
nature.
mean, I saw him and watched him run, just watching him run a go route, and the ball was over his head by 7, 8 yards, and all of a sudden he went from shoot to shoot. I'm like, this guy is talented. I mean, I think the most talented. So, and I agree with T.O. It's like a you pick him. I mean, really, because Jerry, I mean, people always say he's the greatest. He got 3 Super Bowl rings. T.O., you know, played. People forget this man played in the Super Bowl with a broke leg, almost like Jack Youngblood. You know how tough that is to play receiver running routes with a broke leg as a running back.
Two screws in a plate.
And signed off, say I'll take responsibility whatever happens to me.
So are you saying 1A to 1?
I'll say, I mean, I'm just saying, you pick them. I mean, and I'm saying this. I'm gonna ask you this question, Skip, right here on air. To me, as a Hall of Famer, also you, Shannon, as a Hall of Famer, this man deserves to wear that yellow jacket. How in the world can you say that if you 1, 2, 3 as a receiver or whatever position, quarterback, running back, defensive back, that ever played in the National Football League, and you don't wear a gold jacket, that's it almost like a farce. It's like saying
blasphemy.
It's like saying Babe Ruth, played soccer. He didn't play baseball.
Okay, we
it's
don't
like
have
saying,
time
hold up,
to do this
hold up,
again
but let me
because
say
we
it
have
again.
done it before.
But let me say this here. It's like this is black skin. It ain't green. You ain't fooling nobody. I mean, it's like a joke. We're not going to, but I'm just saying. We know
I hear
as players.
I get it.
As players, we know who can play.
We ride the
know
bus.
guys who can play, and they put guys are in the Hall of Fame, and I'll never say guys in there. You like, huh? Huh? How he get in?
There's no doubt
But
that
anyway.
Terrell could play at the highest level, at a Hall of Fame level.
I can play
But
right now.
You can play right now?
Oh, I would say that.
I can play right now.
Even he doesn't think he could play right
Oh,
now.
I can't play. I can't play, but he
I think he can play.
you know why he can play? Because he wants to. And
Okay.
he's taking care of himself. I mean, he's pretty much the same size as he was there when he played. He might be a few pounds lighter.
Okay, so I'm going to get to my pick here, which dovetails off what I'm going to say about you. And you know what I think, that you didn't tear apart just one team, but it was three in a row, 3 potential Super Bowl teams he tore apart, and you weren't there, so you don't get it.
And you
So
weren't
just
there
set it up.
either.
I was there.
No, you
on
weren't. You just-
the first one. I was there on the first one.
Hearsay doesn't count.
Yeah. All right,
Hearsay doesn't
hearsay.
count.
I think it's from the horse's mouths. But anyway, we don't want it. We did it before. We're not going to
Depends
do it
on
again.
who that horse is.
All right. So let's talk about the greatest receiver leader that I was ever around, and that was Michael Irvin. And to me, he's the greatest receiver ever, and I can back it up with the numbers. And I think even you would agree that Jerry Rice played in the most receiver-friendly offense ever invented, the West Coast offense.
Not his fault.
Okay, but he played in it and he benefited from it. Michael played in a receiver-unfriendly offense that was built completely around Emmitt Smith, and it hurt the productivity of the quarterback and the number one receiver for sure. But if I show you the numbers from 1991 to 1998, which was when Michael was at his peak, his numbers are better than the great Jerry Rice's. And more than that, before I get into that, Jerry, if you know him, and I do know him very well, he was more of a follower than a leader. While Michael was the driving force, the leader of a team that should have won 4 straight Super Bowls if Jerry hadn't fired Jimmy Johnson after the second Super Bowl. And they did win 3 out of 4, thanks in large part to Michael Irvin. And if we look at these numbers from 91 to 98, the receptions are about the same, but receptions for first down, 531 for Michael Irvin to 467 for Jerry. Receptions for first down for a first down on third down, 142 to 134. Fourth quarter yards, 1,030 for Michael Irvin to 868 for Jerry Rice. And then if I start into the playoffs, look at Irvin's teams over those years. 12-4 in the playoffs to Jerry's 7-5.
We got to do a disclaimer, Skip. Jerry tore his ACL the first game of '96.
Okay.
He missed 15 games.
That was when I became on the scene.
You came on the scene,
Yeah.
okay? But I'm saying in an unfriendly receiver offense, Michael still dominated. And he dominated in the playoffs, even though, now, look,
Just
Jerry
because
played 12 playoff
Just because
games.
he got more first downs than Jerry doesn't make him greater.
He was called the playmaker for a reason, because all he did was make plays. And I was there. And in Washington and New York and Philadelphia in December, I wanted that man in my foxhole because he saved their bacon time and time again with huge catches.
That means the
I've
Cowboys
never seen
weren't
anything like
as
him before.
efficient downs 1 through 3
Yep.
as the Niners were. So he had to be that guy to get the first down. So those
You
numbers are a
wouldn't
little
have to be a
skewed to me.
Cowboy fan, would you?
Okay, those
I
numbers are
am,
skewed to me.
but you know what? I wasn't even the biggest Michael fan because obviously he had lots of issues off the field. But he did not bring them on the field or into the locker room. When it was time to work, he worked. Practice, he practiced. Lead, he led. I've never seen
When you
a
leave
force
the
of
locker
nature
room,
like
that's still
Michael
an
Irvin.
extension of the locker room, isn't it?
That's what they say.
You know,
That's what they say about you now.
Exactly. Exactly.
Just like T.O., people have their thoughts, opinions about T.O. And when I played in the 80s, and when I held out, I was this bad guy. I was a cancer to the football team. I was a distraction. I was not a locker room lawyer. I played football and went home. I didn't even like talking to the media. I was a real quiet guy, almost
would
like
agree.
him. That wasn't me. But all of a sudden, they throw that on you, and all of a sudden, people like when they meet you, it's like, man, you're not nothing like I thought, nothing like I heard. You know, you're not like that, because that wasn't me. I mean, I wasn't that guy that everybody hated. When I came back and played the Rams, when I played with the Colts, man, them guys hugged me. I was so glad to see those players. I never wanted to leave the Rams. That was the Rams' choice to a sense. I mean,
But you've been broke playing for the Rams.
Thank you. I told John Robinson run 47 gap, you know, and then
I get the same
so it's the
thing that
same
he
thing.
does.
I mean, pretty much the same thing with T.O.
Swear,
I got
all the time.
I got you, and I've said this before, and I'm not just saying this because T.O.'s here, and you've heard me say it ad nauseum, Skip. Jerry is number 1. T.O. in my book is number 2. Randy Moss is number 3. I'm sorry. I love Playmaker, and don't call my phone.
Which one?
I wouldn't even put Mike in the top 5.
Boy, that is
Wow.
blasphemy right
He
there.
better not call my phone.
Wow.
Some of the stuff that comes out of your mouth is blasphemy.
Oh, I like where we're going here.
Painful truth.
Fox Sports 1 of 1.